Hey there, listeners. This is your host, Trenz, signing in, and welcome to another episode of Trenz Podcast. For today's episode, I will be doing a book review of a young adult book series by author Stephanie Meyer titled Midnight Sun. Also, follow me on Instagram at TrenzYBA, at Twitter at TrenzIbanez, and on YouTube as Katrina Ibanez. Without further ado, let's begin the book review. Just when you thought the Twilight Saga was over, here comes a new book by Stephanie Meyer called The Midnight Sun. And I will be reading the synopsis that you can read at the back of the book. When Edward Cullen and Bella Swan met in Twilight, an iconic love story was born. But until now, fans have only heard Bella's side of the story. At last, readers can experience Edward's version in the long-awaited companion novel Midnight Sun. This unforgettable tale, as told through Edward's eyes, takes on a new and decidedly dark twist. Meeting Bella is both the most unnerving and intriguing event he has experienced in all of his years as a vampire. As we learn more fascinating details about Edward's past and the complexity of his inner thoughts, we understand why this is a defining struggle of his life. How can he justify following his heart if it means leading Bella into danger? My review portion of this episode. Title of the book, Midnight Sun. Author Stephanie Meyer. Once again, the genre is fantasy and adventure, romance, and young adult. Number of pages 662. Started reading this book on August 27, 2021 and finished reading this book on September 2, 2021. This is one of the first time that I can confirm that I listened to an audiobook. If you want to know Edward Cullen's thoughts about Bella during the book Twilight, then read the story. I would recommend reading this book after reading Twilight. I love hearing Edward's thoughts. I loved hearing/reading more about Edward and Alice's interaction with each other. To know more about Carla and Esme, Emmett and Rosalie, Jasper and Alice, and Edward interact with each other, both outwardly and mentally. How Peter and Charlotte, Jasper's brother and his mate, during Jasper's time during the Southern Vampire Wars, visited them during the timeline of Twilight, and how the Irish Coven was introduced in one of Edward's flashbacks. Now, it makes way more sense when they came to help during Breaking Dawn. I loved Edward's inner monologue. I loved how Jasper used his powers over emotions during the baseball game by making himself, Esme, Alice, and Bella very boring, mundane, and unimportant. It just goes to show how very, very useful Jasper is. How Esme and Rosalie stayed in Forks to keep Charlie safe. How Edward, Emmett, and Carlisle attempted to trap James the Hunter using Bella's scent but ultimately failed. We all know that Jasper, Alice, and Bella went to Phoenix, Arizona, and how Bella was ultimately lured away from them. The aftermath of the hunt and how Alice used her visions for a cover-up for what happened to Bella. And I just wanted to say I hate Rosalie in this book. I just started to love her in Breaking Dawn. Edward Cullen is also such a liar. I definitely recommend you read this book for more in-depth insight on how the Cullens and other vampires spend their time when most people are sleeping. And that's all for this book review. Although I'm kind of wondering if Stephanie Meyer will make a book to accompany what happened during the events of New Moon. What were the other Cullens doing at the time? Who knows? So, my dear listeners, if you want to actually know what happened in Edward's point of view, read the book to find out, my dear listeners. Read the book to find out. Hey there, listeners. That's all for today's episode on Trenz Podcast. You can find Trenz Podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Don't forget to follow or subscribe and leave a comment. And if you want to hear more book reviews and other topics, stay tuned for another episode of Trenz Podcast and keep on listening.